It was a quiet Thursday afternoon when Mrs. Eleni Papadopoulos returned to the old school in Sipolia, the place where she had taught generations of children. The walls still smelled of dust and chalk, though the corridors were emptier now, the voices of youth long faded. She hadn't been back in years, but today, a message from a former colleague had drawn her in. Renovations were underway, and someone had found a box, forgotten in the back of the storage room. Inside, beneath faded textbooks and broken rulers, was a small tattered notebook. Ad's blue paper cover had been reinforced with duct tape. The pages were worn, edges curled like leaves in autumn. Across the top, in pencil, almost too faint to read, it said, "Giannis Antetokounmpo, Diary." Her hands trembled as she held, till her memories returned in waves, of a quiet, lanky boy in the back of her classroom, always polite, always watchful, as if measuring every word and every moment. Giannis had always been a mystery in plain sight. He never spoke about his life outside of school, never complained, never drew attention to himself. He smiled, nodded, and disappeared at the final bell. But now, as she opened the notebook, the truth came pouring out in pencil and scratches, the private voice of a boy who would one day command arenas, speaking only to himself. The first page read like a whisper. "Today," Mama cried. "She thought I didn't see. Nikos didn't eat, so I gave him my piece of bread. I wasn't even that hungry. I told him I already ate." That's not true, but it made him smile. Eleni paused, her throat tightening. It was dated 2006. Giannis would have been 12. "Tomorrow we sell sunglasses again. I want to play basketball after, if I have energy. I hope I do. I think, if I play well enough, someone will notice. Maybe that changes everything." Each line was a fragment of survival wrapped in hope. There were no complaints, only quiet declarations, descriptions of long walks, of cold nights without heat, of watching his parents argue in whispers so the children wouldn't hear, of pretending everything was okay so that Thanasis and Kostas could sleep. "Sometimes I pretend we live in America already. Not in a big house, just one with food. And no fear. That would be enough." Eleni wiped her eyes. She remembered the warnings she used to get, how the school wasn't supposed to ask too many questions about undocumented children. The Antetokounmpo family lived in constant fear of deportation. They were invisible to the system, but very real to each other. Giannis even then had shouldered far more than any child should, and still he had shown up, every day, quiet, attentive, smiling. As she flipped further, the diary changed. It wasn't just about hunger or cold, it was about something more. Dreams, vivid, enormous dreams, scribbled in childish handwriting, pages filled with imaginary games, self-invented drills, and pretend interviews. He wrote as if he already lived in the NBA. "If I make 5 layups in a row, I imagine the crowd cheering. If I miss, I run 5 more laps. One day I'll do this for real." I will. And drawings, so many drawings. A hoop nailed to a telephone pole, shoes patched with tape, a hand reaching for a rim. One page had only this written in all caps: "If I jump high enough, maybe I don't need shoes." Eleni remembered, asking him once why he always wore the same sneakers, even when they had holes in them. He'd said, "They still work." She hadn't understood the depth of that answer until now. There was one passage, written shakily, as if he'd been unsure whether to write it at all. "Today the police stopped Papa. He didn't do anything wrong. They just asked where he was from. We don't know what to do if they come again. I didn't tell Mama, but I'm scared every time I hear sirens." The diary wasn't a place of refuge. It was a battlefield, one where Giannis fought his fears, with words, with rituals, with hope. It became clear to Eleni that no one had seen this part of him, not his brothers, not his coaches. Only the notebook knew. But then, a shift. Around mid-2007, the tone grew bolder. There was a new rhythm in the way he wrote, shorter sentences, more certainty. "Today I played at the lot near the bakery. A man watched. I didn't talk to him, but he watched me for a long time. Maybe it means something. I'm faster now, I feel it. My legs burn, but I like it. When I close my eyes, I hear the announcer say my name. From Greece, Giannis Antetokounmpo." and the crowd goes crazy. I hear it like it's real. And then, tucked between the lines of a school math worksheet, a simple line, "One day they'll know who I am. Not because I want them to, because I'll make them." Eleni's tears returned. The boy had been speaking to himself, but somehow also to the world, to a future that hadn't happened yet. He was building his own mythology out of hunger and repetition, out of streets and shadows. She looked again at the cover. It was barely holding together, as if the pages had waited too long to be read. As she closed it gently, she realized something deeper. This wasn't just the diary of a child. It was a blueprint, a record of resilience so profound it defied logic. The diary didn't just reveal who Giannis had been. It explained everything he became. Outside, the sun was setting over Sepolia. Kids played in the distance, yelling and laughing, their sneakers pounding the cracked concrete. Eleni stood still, holding the diary to her chest. She had spent her life teaching children how to write their futures, but only now did she realize Giannis had already written his. Page by page, line by line. Before anyone had ever believed in him, he had written it down like a promise, and he kept it. The diary had been closed for over a decade, but its words still echoed in Eleni's mind like an unresolved prayer. She couldn't keep it to herself, not after what she had read, not after understanding, finally, the silent fire that burned behind Giannis's eyes. So she reached out to someone who would understand, someone who had lived that same hunger, that same tightrope of dreams and dread. His name was Thanasis. He met her in Milwaukee, now a world away from Sepolia, in a small Greek cafe owned by a friend of the family. He greeted her with a long, quiet embrace, and when she placed the diary on the table, his fingers froze. He stared at it like it was a ghost. Slowly he opened it. For minutes he didn't speak. His eyes moved line by line, and his breathing changed. When he finally looked up, there were tears he didn't bother to wipe away. "He never told me," Thanasis said. "He kept all this, he carried all this alone." What Thanasis understood in that moment, and what Eleni had already begun to feel, was that Giannis had never shared his pain, not fully, not even with his brother. It was as if he had made a pact with himself to protect everyone else from the weight he bore. And maybe that's what greatness demands, a private furnace no one else is allowed to feed. In the middle of the diary was an entry dated March 2008. "The man came again. He watched me play. He has a whistle and a notebook. Maybe he's a coach. I wanted to ask him something, but I got scared. I didn't want him to think I was weak. It was the first sign that someone outside the family had noticed him. Someone had seen the speed, the length, the instincts, all raw and untrained but undeniable. Yet even in that moment of potential, Giannis wrote not about excitement, but fear. Fear of being judged. Fear of being dismissed. If he says I'm not good, then maybe I stop dreaming. Maybe I don't want to know yet. But fate was stubborn. Giannis kept showing up. Every afternoon after school, after selling sunglasses and DVDs with his brothers, he returned to the dusty court near the bakery. He ran drills alone, timed his own sprints with a broken watch, practiced jump shots until his hands were numb. The diary told it all. The ball has no grip now. My fingers slip. But if I focus harder, maybe it doesn't matter. Thanasis says my legs are getting longer. I don't know if that helps, but it feels like I can fly. Some days he wrote about food, a shared apple between 5 people, a cup of rice that had to last 2 meals. Other days he didn't mention food at all, as if talking about it made the hunger more real. But he never stopped writing about basketball. Today I dunked for the first time. No one saw, but I know I did it. I touched the rim and the ball went through. It was quiet. But inside, I heard everything. It was during these years that his body began to change. He grew taller, leaner, faster. The court, once too big, now seemed to shrink beneath him. He started playing with older boys, stronger, tougher. They pushed him, knocked him down. He got back up. They called me Bambi, said I was too skinny. I smiled. Let them talk. The deer learns to run before it learns to fight. One line stood out above the rest, scrawled diagonally across a page, underlined twice. I don't want to be good. I want to be necessary. That was the turning point. Giannis stopped playing for escape and started playing for legacy. He began to believe, truly believe, that he could make it out. But with that belief came pressure, a new kind of weight. Mama cries less now, Papa smiles more when he sees me train. They believe it too. That makes me scared. What if I fail? What if I give them hope and it breaks? Still, he played. Still, he trained. He learned to dribble low to the ground, to attack the rim with both hands, to pass without looking. He watched NBA highlights on cracked screens at internet cafes, studying every movement like scripture. Kobe, LeBron, Durant. He wrote their names over and over, not as idols, but as targets. They are not gods. They are men. They bled too. They struggled too. Maybe I can stand next to them one day. In late 2008, the diary describes a moment that changed everything. The coach asked if I had papers. I said no. He said he couldn't register me. I didn't cry. I said thank you. But inside I felt like glass. Am I invisible forever? This was the harshest truth. Talent meant nothing without identity. In Greece, without citizenship, Giannis wasn't a person on paper. He couldn't travel, couldn't join a league, couldn't dream freely. And yet he kept going. In secret, in silence. In spite of everything, I run like I'm being chased. Because I am. By time, by poverty, by forgetting. Then, a miracle, not sudden, but gradual. Someone intervened. A coach named Takis Zivas took him in, gave him structure, discipline, and above all, belief. He saw what the others didn't. He saw not just a player, but a force waiting to erupt. Coach says I need to eat more. I didn't tell him we can't afford it. He gave me a protein bar. I saved half for Nikos. The entries from this time are more fragmented, as if life began moving too fast to keep up. Tryouts, practices, shoes donated by teammates, a scholarship offer, and then scouts, whispers of the NBA. Giannis still couldn't believe it. A man from America came today. He watched quietly. Then he asked my name. I said, Giannis. He said, I'll remember that. I don't know if he meant it. As hope grew, so did fear. His entries became conflicted, moments of euphoria laced with panic. If I leave, who takes care of Mama? Who watches Nikos at night? What if I fail over there? What if they laugh? What if I disappear? But alongside the doubt came resolve, a line that read more like a vow than a thought. If I go, I take all of them with me. Every step I run, they run too. I am not alone. I am not one. The last entry in the middle of the book, before the NBA became real, before the contracts and the lights, was simple. Whatever happens, I will never forget the boy with no shoes, running through Sepolia like the world was watching. Was there that the tone of the diary changed once more, not just in content but in voice. He no longer sounded like a child begging for a chance. He sounded like a man forging his destiny, and still no one knew, not even Thanasis. All those nights they shared a mattress, all those days selling trinkets in the streets, Giannis had been writing it all down, not for glory, not for sympathy, but because something inside him needed it to be real, needed it to exist outside of his own imagination. Back at the cafe, Thanasis closed the diary and leaned back in his chair. His voice was raw. You know, he said slowly, people talk about where he is now, but they don't understand what he came from. Not really. They see the muscles, the trophies, the smile. They don't see this. He tapped the cover gently. This is him. This is the real him. Eleni nodded. For the first time, she truly understood. The miracle of Giannis wasn't just that he made it. It was that he never let the journey harden him, that despite the poverty, the fear, the silence, he emerged. Not bitter, but grateful. Not jaded, but joyful. And above all, he had remembered the boy he once was. And that boy, against every odd, had become necessary. It was quiet in the hotel suite, despite the skyline of Los Angeles blinking just beyond the glass. Giannis stood by the window, alone, fingers absently bouncing a small rubber ball off the wall. The kind of ball you win in a coin machine. It made a dull sound against the drywall each time it landed, a rhythm that only made sense in his mind. On the nearby table, Something weighted, small, unassuming, and old. The diary Thanasis had given it to him the night before, saying only, "You should read it alone." Now it was just the two of them, Giannis and the voice of the boy he used to be. He didn't open it at first. He stared at it, like someone might stare at an old photograph of a loved one long gone, afraid of what it might stir, of how much it might hurt to feel everything again. Then, slowly, he sat. His hands, now massive and calloused from years of playing at the highest level, dwarfed the fragile book. He opened to the first page. There it was, his handwriting, his voice, but young, raw, trembling. He read the first lines and stopped. Not because he couldn't continue, but because something inside him cracked open. The ball slipped from his fingers and rolled away, forgotten. He kept reading. Each page brought back memories not just of moments, but of sensations. The dry burn, of hunger, the hollow echo of footsteps in cold hallways, the adrenaline of hiding behind a corner while the police passed by, the weight of silence at the dinner table, the sound of his mother's sigh when she thought no one was listening, and within it all the relentless flicker of hope that never died. He remembered the shoes taped together, the sting of a twisted ankle because he wouldn't tell the coach, the way his stomach turned before every practice, not from nerves, but from emptiness. He remembered walking past bakery windows and imagining what bread tasted like with butter. One line in the diary made him pause, holding the page as if it might crumble. "If I ever make it, I hope I never forget this. I hope I remember how it felt to be invisible." He sat there for a long time, the city's lights flickering against the glass. Around him, the symbols of success were everywhere. The NBA jersey draped over a chair, the MVP trophy on the shelf, the designer shoes by the door. None of them meant as much in that moment as the words written by his 13-year-old self in the dark. Later that week, away from the cameras, Giannis arranged a visit back to Athens. No press, no entourage, just him, Eleni, and the streets that had built him. They met outside the school. It hadn't changed much. The paint was peeling. The basketball court out back still had the same cracks, now with weeds growing through them. She stood waiting for him, the diary tucked under her arm. When she saw him, her eyes lit up like she was seeing a miracle. "Welcome home," she said softly. He embraced her without a word. There were tears, but neither tried to hide them. She handed him the diary, but he didn't take it this time. He just held her hand. They walked through the old classroom. He ran his hand along the desks, now smaller than he remembered. Eleni pointed to the corner seat in the last row. "That's where you always sat, quiet, focused, always scribbling in that little notebook." He smiled. "I wasn't just writing," he said. "I was building something." Afterward, they sat on the old court. Giannis looked out over the faded lines where his dreams had been drawn in sweat and repetition. For a while, he didn't speak. He just listened, the way you listen to a memory. "You know," he said finally, "when I first came to the NBA, I thought I had to forget this, that I had to become someone new. I was scared they wouldn't accept me if they saw where I came from." Eleni looked at him gently. "And now? Now I know this is everything," he said. "This isn't just where I came from, it's who I am." He paused. "When I step on that court, I'm not just playing for titles. I'm playing for the kid who ran with holes in his shoes, for my father, who never saw me win a championship, for my mother, who gave up her life for us to have a chance, for you, for this court, for everyone who's ever felt unseen." Later, back in Milwaukee, Giannis made a quiet decision. He had the diary carefully scanned and bound page by page, preserving every sketch, every smudge, every broken line. He had one copy made, for himself. The rest he kept locked away. But the impact of the diary didn't stay locked. He started speaking differently in interviews. When reporters asked about his drive, he quoted the diary. When young players asked him how to handle pressure, he told them about selling sunglasses in the streets. He told them about fear, about silence, about what it means to keep showing up even when the world says you don't exist. And then, during a post-game press conference after a hard-fought playoff win, someone asked him, "Giannis, what keeps you grounded?" He looked at the reporter. then reached into his bag and pulled out a single photocopied page. He unfolded it slowly. "Today I didn't eat, but I played better than yesterday. Maybe being hungry helps, or maybe I'm just getting stronger." He looked up. "This," he said, "is who I was, and who I still am." It sent ripples through the basketball world. Fans posted lines from the diary across social media. Players reached out, asking if they could read it. Coaches printed it out for their teams, but Giannis kept most of it private. He believed some stories needed to be protected. Still, he knew it had done something, not just for others, but for him. Reading that diary didn't just reconnect him with the past. It reawakened a part of him that had almost been buried beneath success, the part that remembered how to play with no lights, no cameras, no fans. Just heart. In the months that followed, Giannis returned to Sepolia more often. He helped build a new youth center near his old school, but he insisted that one court, the broken one, the original, be preserved. Not renovated, not erased, left exactly as it was, because that court told a story of a boy with no papers, no shoes, no guarantees, a boy who wrote down his dreams because that was the only way he could keep them alive, a boy who believed even when no one was watching. The diary now sits in a climate-controlled archive in Athens, protected like a national artifact. But to Giannis, its true home is in his memory, in every layup, in every free throw, in every moment when the game is on the line and the lights are blinding. Because in those moments, when everything is loud and fast and heavy, he still hears the quiet voice of that boy. "If I jump high enough, maybe I don't need shoes. If I keep running, maybe someone will see. If I believe enough, maybe I become necessary." He did jump, he did run, he did believe. And now the world knows his name, not just because he won, but because he remembered, because he never forgot the boy in the dark, scribbling in secret, daring to write himself into history.